In this class, we will talk about Descartes. Descartes was born in 1596 and died in 1650. He was a philosopher, mathematician, and a scientist. He studied at the Jesuit College of La Flèche. His father was a counselor for the Parliament of Brittany and had a moderate amount of property. When his father died, he sold the property and had a monthly income from it, and he devoted himself to intellectual pursuits. However, he also joined the army a couple of times. He joined the Dutch army, where he says he spent 2 years in meditation since there was no war. When the 30-Year War started, he joined the Bavarian army, and it is there that he is said to have climbed into a stove to think for a day and came out with his entire philosophy worked out. Oh, and by the way, a stove was not like a literal stove. He actually went into a room that was heated. After the Bavarian army, he returned to Paris, but he was displeased because his friends would show up in his apartment before noon, and he liked to sleep late. He spent a lot of time in bed. He was an avid defender of science, and he was persecuted by the church, so he had eventually to move from France to the Netherlands, where he lived for 20 years. Descartes never married, but he did have an illegitimate daughter that died at the age of 5. He was always very well dressed, and he carried a sword. He was quite a gentleman. When he was around 50, I think 54, Queen Christina of Sweden invited him to be her tutor, but the classes were at 5 a.m. and it was too early for him, and he ended up dying of pneumonia at the age of 54, so that was pretty young. Descartes is well known for the Cartesian coordinate system, which you may have heard about in school before. The story goes that he was in bed, as usual, looking at the ceiling, and he saw the squares in the ceiling and a fly, and he started thinking, how can I pinpoint the exact location of the fly? And he came up with the Cartesian coordinate system. Descartes was a rationalist, but he was also a skeptic. Descartes' skeptic challenge was to not accept as true nothing which could be where you could entertain the slightest doubt. This may seem silly in everyday life if you don't accept as true anything that you can have the slightest doubt about, but he was trying to develop the foundations of science and a new scientific method. He wanted to create the foundations of scientific method that could not be attacked by the skeptics. The method he used was also sometimes called Cartesian doubt. The method of doubt is the first step of Descartes' scientific method. Since he was looking for certainty, he decided he would lay aside anything about which he could find a doubt. Like having a barrel of apples. Some are good and some are bad. You need to take them all out first and then look at them one by one thoroughly, and then the dubious ones you put aside and you only put back the ones that are sound. The Cartesian doubt method has several steps. In step 1, he started looking at ordinary things like sticks look bent in the water. Everybody's experienced that. In step 2, we started thinking sometimes we are awake and we see things around us, but when we're dreaming, we also think we're seeing things, but we're not. So how can we be certain that we're not dreaming? Then in step 3, he imagined an evil spirit or an evil genie that deceived him with evil intentions. If that was true, if the genie really existed, then was there anything that this genie or spirit could not deceive him about? So the only thing that he thought the evil genie could not possibly deceive him about is that he cannot make him think that he's thinking, since a false thought is still a thought. So from the certainty that he's thinking, he deduces that he exists, since in order for something to think, there has to be something that thinks. That's where he gets his cogito. I think, therefore I am. In French, je pense donc je suis. And in Latin, cogito ergo sum. The cogito leaves Descartes with assurance that he exists, of his existence, but it does not help him guarantee the existence of the external world. And strangely, the way he goes about to doing this is through thinking about the existence of God. And in order to do this, he creates a version of the ontological argument, which was an old medieval argument for the existence of God. It goes like this. If we can think of a perfect being, then God must exist, because perfection includes existence. In another part of the argument, he says that the lesser cannot give rise to the greater, and since God is the idea of an infinite being, no finite creature could come up with that idea. So the idea of an infinite being is as if it's the mark of the maker on humans. So these two arguments make him think that he can be sure that God exists just by thinking. But why does Descartes want to bring God into this? Well, he wants to bring God into this to put back the external world. It's very interesting. So his idea is, if he thinks about everything carefully about the external world, he can put back in the basket certain aspects of the material world. He thinks that if I do everything in my power to guarantee that my beliefs are not founded on error, then God will make sure that I am not fundamentally and systematically mistaken. God will make sure that I'm not deceived by an evil genie. This is why he needs to postulate God to bring back the material world. Now, the crucial step is what comes next. So when Descartes puts back the apples in the basket, he doesn't put back the same apples that he took out. The only things he puts back are the basic elements of reality. He only puts back matter, space, and motion. So the new scientific method that he was helping to create will give instructions on how to understand the world in these terms. Descartes thought that there was a fundamental difference between mind and matter. So for Plato, we saw before there was the world of forms and the world of matter. Aristotle tried to bring it together. Descartes completely separated matter and mind. So matter for him was matter, space, and motion, and mind was something entirely different. This is also called Cartesian dualism. So Descartes thought that the body was a complete mechanical automata, while the soul was in a different realm altogether. Mind and body were completely separate. So automata were pretty popular gadgets at Descartes' time. In Descartes' time, they were a little mechanical things that moved and acted as if they were alive, but they were really just mechanical gadgets, like inside of a clock, so to speak. If you've seen the movie Hugo, maybe you have seen an automata before. Therefore, they were very good illustrations for what he was trying to say. Okay, to wrap it up, he thought that human bodies were a mechanical automata, but that the soul entered the body through the pineal gland up there next to the brain, in the brain. So, interesting theory. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed learning about Descartes and that you enjoy your discussion.